Imagine sinking hours into your garden, only to harvest a handful of sad, buggy veggies that taste like disappointment. Sound familiar? Today, I'm revealing 7 vegetables you should never plant in your garden. But don't worry, I'm also sharing the best alternatives that will save you time, effort, and frustration, all while boosting your harvest. I'm here to help you create a garden that thrives with minimal effort. If you're new to the channel, I focus on giving you practical, easy-to-follow gardening advice. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tip to help your garden grow. Today, we're talking about 7 vegetables that are notoriously hard to grow. I'll explain why you should steer clear of them, and I'll introduce you to some incredible alternatives. These options are easier, more resilient, and will help you get the most out of your garden. So, if you're ready for a more productive garden season, let's get started. As gardeners, we've all been there. You put in the effort planting seeds, watering, adjusting the soil, doing everything you think is right. But then, out of nowhere, your plants just don't thrive. It's frustrating, isn't it? Whether it's pests that attack, disease that spreads quickly, or simply bad weather throwing everything off track. The problem is, some vegetables are just way harder to grow than others. And no matter how hard you try, they seem to resist every attempt at success. And it's not just pests and weather. Let's talk about space. Not everyone has a huge backyard or a garden that's perfect for sprawling crops. You need to consider the space you have available. And some veggies, like corn or cauliflower, can take up a lot of that precious real estate for very little return. And don't even get me started on the water needs of plants like celery. It feels like you're constantly running back and forth with the hose just to keep them alive. I know many of you have experienced this firsthand. So tell me, have you had trouble growing any of these vegetables? Maybe they didn't grow as expected, or they just didn't give you the harvest you were hoping for. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your gardening stories and struggles. You're not alone in this, and we can learn from each other. Let's start with cauliflower, a vegetable that many gardeners struggle with, myself included. Cauliflower can be notoriously difficult to grow, and there are several reasons why. First off, it's highly susceptible to pests like aphids, cabbage worms, and even snails that can quickly take over your plants if you're not vigilant. Not only that, but cauliflower needs cool, consistent temperatures to thrive, which can be tricky to maintain. A slight temperature fluctuation, whether it's a hot spell or an unexpected cold snap, and your cauliflower will start to bolt or turn bitter. It's also very picky about its growing environment and requires rich, well-drained soil with a balanced pH. And don't even get me started on the time it takes to mature. Cauliflower can take months to grow, and even then, the heads don't always form properly or reach a good size. Now, I know it's disappointing when a plant doesn't live up to expectations, but don't worry. There are great alternatives. Kale is a much easier option and a perfect replacement for cauliflower. First off, kale is more resilient to pests like aphids and cabbage worms, so you won't need to stress about constant pest control. It's also more adaptable to temperature fluctuations, making it a great choice for gardeners with varying weather patterns. Kale is a cool season crop, but it can handle slightly warmer temperatures without bolting or becoming bitter. Plus, it's much faster to grow than cauliflower. Within just 60 to 80 days, you'll have plenty of harvestable leaves. Kale is also a heavy producer, meaning you'll be able to continuously harvest throughout the growing season. It's packed with nutrients, offering high amounts of vitamins A, C, and K, as well as antioxidants. So, if you're looking for a hearty, high-yield veggie to replace cauliflower, kale's your answer. It's not only easy to grow, but it'll keep producing all season long with minimal effort. Now, let's move on to another vegetable that's often a letdown for gardeners: celery. If you've ever tried growing celery, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Next up, let's talk about celery, a vegetable that seems easy enough, but it's actually one of the most high-maintenance plants you can grow. First, celery is incredibly thirsty. It needs constant, consistent watering. If it dries out even a little, the stalks become tough and stringy. Now, think about how much time and effort that takes. You're constantly monitoring the soil moisture, making sure it's never too dry, but also not too soggy. Celery is also quite sensitive to temperature. If it gets too hot, it can become bitter and unpalatable. And unlike other vegetables, celery doesn't just grow and yield in a short time. It's slow to mature, requiring several months to reach full size. Plus, the yield you get is often low compared to the amount of work it requires. And let's not forget the space. Celery needs a decent amount of room to grow well, especially in containers or smaller garden beds. Now, I know all this can sound a little discouraging if you love celery, but there's an easy fix: Swiss chard. Swiss chard is an incredible alternative, and here's why. It's low maintenance, super easy to grow, and doesn't require constant watering. Once it's established, Swiss chard thrives with regular watering, but is much more forgiving than celery, especially when it comes to soil moisture. It's also incredibly versatile. Whether you're planting it in a garden bed, raised bed, or even a container, Swiss chard adapts well to almost any environment. And unlike celery, Swiss chard doesn't require a long growing season. In fact, it matures from about 50 to 60 days, meaning you can start harvesting early and keep harvesting throughout the season. Just trim the outer leaves and it will keep producing. Swiss chard is also far more nutrient-dense than celery, offering plenty of vitamin K, A, and C, plus magnesium, iron, and potassium. It's not only easier to grow, but it'll give you a continuous, healthy harvest all year long. So, if you've been struggling with celery, make the switch to Swiss chard. It's a win for your garden and your plate. Now let's move on to a vegetable that takes up a lot of space and can often leave you feeling disappointed with the results: corn. But don't worry, I've got a much better alternative for you. Next up is corn, a classic garden vegetable that can be a bit of a headache for many gardeners. While it's often considered a staple crop, growing corn at home can be much more complicated than you might think. First of all, corn is space hungry. It needs a lot of room to grow, and if you're working with a smaller garden, that's already a huge challenge. On top of that, it's not a great producer for the space it takes up. Corn takes up a lot of resources like water and nutrients, and it often doesn't yield as much as you'd expect. In fact, for the time and effort you put into growing corn, the harvest may feel underwhelming. And that's not even considering the pests. Corn borers, aphids, and earworms just love to target your plants. Plus, corn is very sensitive to weather conditions. If there's a drought or an unexpected cold snap, it can lead to stunted growth or poor quality ears. In short, corn requires more care than many other vegetables, and it takes up so much space for what it gives you in return. Now, if you're looking to make the most of your garden space while still getting a great harvest, bush beans are an excellent alternative to corn. Unlike corn, bush beans are compact and thrive in smaller spaces. You can plant them in rows or even containers, making them perfect for gardeners with limited space. They don't require a lot of room to grow, and in return, they offer a prolific harvest. You'll get tons of beans in just a few months. Plus, beans are nitrogen fixers, which means they help improve your soil for future crops by adding nitrogen back into it. They're incredibly easy to grow, and because they grow quickly, you can enjoy multiple harvests in one season. And the best part? You won't have to worry about dealing with the same pest problems that corn brings. So instead of dedicating so much space to corn, switch to bush beans and watch your garden thrive without all the hassle. Let's move on to another vegetable that's often a bit of a diva in the garden: eggplant. If you've tried growing it, you know it can be a challenge, but there's a much easier, more versatile option to replace it. Now, let's talk about eggplant, another vegetable that can be a real headache for gardeners. While it's a favorite in many dishes, eggplant is definitely not the easiest plant to grow. First, eggplants are picky about heat. They need consistently warm temperatures to thrive, but they're also sensitive to extreme heat. Too much sun and they can become scorched or bitter. They also have very specific soil requirements. Well-drained, rich soil with plenty of organic matter is essential for healthy growth, which means a lot of extra effort in preparation. And let's not forget the pests. Eggplants are notorious for being magnets for flea beetles, aphids, and earworms just love to target your plants. Plus, eggplant is very sensitive to weather conditions. If there's a drought or an unexpected cold snap, it can lead to stunted growth or poor quality ears. In short, corn requires more care than many other vegetables, and it takes up so much space for what it gives you in return. But here's the good news. If you're tired of babysitting eggplants, peppers are a fantastic alternative. They're far easier to grow, more versatile, and just as rewarding. Peppers are less fussy about temperature and soil, and they can thrive in a range of conditions. You don't need to constantly worry about them overheating or underperforming like you do with eggplants. Plus, peppers come in all shapes, sizes, and heat levels. Whether you're looking for sweet bell peppers or spicy jalapenos, there's a variety for everyone. And the best part? Peppers are much faster to harvest. You can start picking them just a few months after planting, so you won't be waiting half the season to enjoy the fruits of your labor. They also tend to have fewer pest problems compared to eggplants, so you can spend less time dealing with infestations and more time enjoying your garden. If you're looking for something that's low maintenance, versatile in the kitchen, and still delivers a flavorful harvest, peppers should be your go-to crop. Now that we've covered eggplant, let's move on to another vegetable that can be a bit of a time investment. Brussels sprouts. While they can be a rewarding crop, they definitely have their challenges. But don't worry, I've got a much easier alternative for you. Next on our list is Brussels sprouts, a vegetable that many gardeners love, but it's not exactly for the faint of heart. Growing Brussels sprouts requires patience. They have a long growing season, sometimes taking up to 6 months to mature, which means you'll need to plan well in advance. This extended growth period can be a major drawback, especially if you're limited by space or want quicker results. Brussels sprouts also need cool, consistent weather. They thrive in the fall and winter, but if the temperatures fluctuate too much or get too warm, your sprouts will not develop properly. And like many other members of the cabbage family, they're prone to pests like aphids, cabbage worms, and slugs. You'll need to keep an eye out for these pests, which can easily infest your crop if not managed. On top of that, they're also space-hungry, requiring a significant amount of room in your garden to grow. All this care and attention for a vegetable that can sometimes disappoint when it comes to yield. If you're tired of the long wait and constant vigilance that Brussels sprouts demand, I have the perfect alternative. Broccoli. Broccoli is not only faster to grow, but it's also far easier to manage. Unlike Brussels sprouts, you can harvest broccoli in as little as 60 to 90 days, making it a great option if you want quicker results. It thrives in similar cool weather conditions, but is much more forgiving when it comes to temperature fluctuations. Broccoli is less prone to pest infestations than Brussels sprouts, and it has a much smaller space requirement, so you can grow it in smaller gardens or raised beds. Additionally, you get multiple harvests. After cutting the main head, you'll continue to get smaller side shoots that give you a steady supply throughout the growing season. Broccoli is also packed with vitamins and nutrients like vitamin C, calcium, and iron, making it an incredibly healthy crop to add to your garden. If you're looking for something that's low maintenance, versatile in the kitchen, and still delivers a flavorful harvest, broccoli is your best bet. Now let's move on to a vegetable that many of us grow for the promise of a unique harvest, but often ends up being a bit of a space hog. Artichokes. While they have their appeal, they come with some pretty significant drawbacks. But don't worry, there's a much easier option to replace them. Now let's talk about artichokes, a vegetable that, while delicious, is notoriously space-intensive and slow to grow. First off, artichokes need a lot of room to thrive. Their plants can spread wide, taking up valuable garden space that could be better used for quicker growing crops. But the real challenge with artichokes is their growth timeline. These plants can take several years to fully establish before you can even begin harvesting, which means a huge commitment of time and resources for a relatively slow return. On top of that, they're quite sensitive to the environment. They require specific soil conditions, consistent watering, and mild winters. If your climate doesn't match those requirements, your artichokes may not thrive. And even in the best conditions, they can sometimes be difficult to manage and need a lot of maintenance to prevent diseases and pests. All in all, artichokes are a high-maintenance crop that demands long-term care and patience. So, If you're looking for something that's not quite as demanding but still produces a high yield, zucchini is an excellent alternative. Unlike artichokes, zucchini is fast-growing, and you can expect to start harvesting in as little as 50 to 60 days. Zucchini plants don't take up nearly as much space, and they're prolific producers. A single plant can give you several harvests throughout the season, so you'll get a lot of food with very little effort. What's more, zucchini is low maintenance compared to artichokes. It tolerates a variety of soil types and weather conditions, and it doesn't require a special climate to thrive. The best part? You'll get a high-yield vegetable that's versatile in the kitchen, easy to grow, and fast to mature. Whether you're grilling, sautéing, or adding it to a casserole, zucchini is the perfect replacement for artichokes if you're looking for something that produces a lot with minimal work. Now, let's talk about a vegetable that's often a major disappointment for gardeners: asparagus. While it's often seen as a gourmet garden staple, it can take forever to get a decent harvest. But don't worry, there's a much quicker, easier solution waiting for you. Lastly, let's talk about asparagus, a vegetable that many gardeners dream of growing, but it's one of the most time-consuming and space-demanding crops you can plant. Asparagus requires years to establish before you can even start harvesting, which means it's a long-term commitment. For a gardener, that's a huge waiting game. It's not unusual for it to take anywhere from 3 to 5 years before you get your first proper crop. That's a lot of patience for just a few spears. And even when it's finally established, asparagus plants need a lot of space to spread out and grow well, which might not be ideal for those with limited gardening space. Plus, they require well-drained, slightly acidic soil, so you'll need to test and amend your soil before planting. And then there's the matter of maintenance. Asparagus can be prone to pests like aphids, and it needs to be carefully managed to prevent diseases and weeds. All in all, it's a crop that demands a lot of care for minimal early results. If you're ready to move on from the long wait and want a much faster, more productive option, spinach is the perfect alternative. Spinach is quick-growing. You can start harvesting in as little as 30 to 45 days after planting. It's also much less demanding than asparagus. Spinach can thrive in a variety of soils and climates, and while it does need consistent watering, it doesn't require the meticulous care that asparagus demands. What's more, spinach is a highly nutritious vegetable, packed with vitamins A, C, and K, along with iron and calcium. It's versatile in the kitchen, from salads to soups, and you can keep harvesting throughout the season by picking the outer leaves. You don't have to wait years for a payoff. Spinach gives you a high nutrient-dense crop within weeks, making it a perfect replacement for asparagus. Plus, it's a much smaller space commitment, so it's great for gardeners with limited space. And there you have it. 7 vegetables that might be holding you back in your garden, and they're much easier, faster-growing alternatives. But wait, before you rush off to plant these new crops, let's dive into some final tips to make sure your garden thrives this season. As we've seen, the vegetables I've suggested as alternatives not only require less space and attention, but they also offer higher yields with a lot less effort. Take kale instead of cauliflower. Kale is resilient, pest-resistant, and gives you a continuous harvest. Or think about how much quicker you can harvest spinach compared to the long wait for asparagus. These alternatives are perfect for gardeners who want faster results, less maintenance, and more rewarding crops throughout the season. Whether it's peppers in place of eggplant or Swiss chard replacing celery, these vegetables thrive in a variety of conditions and are more forgiving when the weather doesn't quite cooperate. By choosing the right alternatives, you can avoid the stress of dealing with picky vegetables and focus on growing crops that are easy to care for and produce plenty of food. Plus, you'll enjoy all the benefits of gardening: great tasting food, a beautiful garden, and the satisfaction of watching your plants thrive. Remember, gardening is a journey of trial and error. You might try a vegetable and it doesn't quite work out the first time. And that's okay. What works in one garden might not work in another. And that's part of the fun. So don't be afraid to experiment with these alternatives. Every garden is different. The soil, the climate, even the way you care for your plants. But by trying out these more forgiving, faster-growing veggies, you'll get a better sense of what works best for your space. And over time, you'll find your rhythm. Keep testing different varieties, see which ones thrive, and adjust accordingly. Your garden is a place where you can learn and grow just as much as your plants. And trust me, your garden will thank you for it. Your harvest will be fuller, your plants healthier, and the gardening experience itself more enjoyable. Now, I know you're probably eager to get planting, but before you rush out to your garden center, let's talk about a few more tips that will make sure your garden stays healthy and productive all season long. Let's start with soil. If you want your plants to thrive, the better your soil, the better your results. Healthy soil is the foundation for any successful garden, so don't skip this step. Consider adding compost or organic matter to your soil to improve drainage and boost nutrient levels. Compost enriches the soil, helping it retain moisture while ensuring it doesn't get too soggy. Plus, it adds essential nutrients that will encourage strong, healthy plant growth. If your soil is clay-heavy or too sandy, you can also mix in organic matter like mulch or leaf litter to balance it out. Healthy soil not only supports plant growth, but also helps plants become more resilient to diseases and pests, which leads to bigger, more productive harvests. Here's a simple yet powerful tip. Companion planting. By pairing certain plants together, you can naturally keep pests at bay and promote healthier growth. For example, try planting basil alongside your peppers. Not only does basil enhance the flavor of peppers, but it also helps keep pests like aphids away. Another great combo is marigolds with your vegetables. Marigolds are known for their ability to repel a variety of pests, including nematodes and aphids. Companion planting is like creating a small ecosystem in your garden, where the plants work together to protect and benefit each other. This simple technique can reduce your reliance on pesticides and help you grow healthier plants with fewer problems. When it comes to watering, consistency is key. Plants thrive on deep, consistent watering, but it's important to avoid overwatering, which can lead to root rot and other issues. Water your garden early in the morning before the sun heats up, which helps reduce evaporation and ensures your plants get the hydration they need throughout the day. Water deeply so that moisture reaches the roots, but don't water again until the soil feels dry about an inch below the surface. Consistent watering helps your plants develop a strong root system, ensuring they can handle those hotter days and grow at a steady pace. Here's another essential tip. Rotate your crops. Planting the same crops in the same spot year after year can lead to soil depletion and an increase in pests and diseases. Crop rotation involves changing the location of your crops each year to prevent these issues. For example, if you planted tomatoes in one area last season, move them to a different spot this year and plant something like beans, which add nitrogen back into the soil. This practice helps maintain soil health, reduces pest buildup, and ensures your plants have the best chance to thrive. By rotating crops, you can avoid the risk of nutrient shortages and keep your garden healthy and productive for years to come. I'd love to hear from you. What vegetables have you struggled with in your garden? Maybe it was a plant that just wouldn't thrive or one that took way more care than it was worth. Leave a comment below and share your gardening experiences. We're all in this together, and who knows, your story might help someone else avoid the same struggles. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out and I'd appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more gardening tips and tricks. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. So remember, while there are definitely vegetables that can be a challenge to grow, there are plenty of easier and more productive alternatives that can save you time, effort, and frustration. Whether it's replacing cauliflower with kale, swapping celery for Swiss chard, or choosing peppers over eggplant, the right choices can make your gardening experience not just easier but more rewarding. With these alternatives, you'll have a garden that's thriving and productive all season long without the stress. Gardening is and it's all about learning and improving along the way. Don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, and adapt as you go. The more you practice, the better your results will be. So keep growing, keep experimenting, and keep enjoying the process. You got this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips help you in your garden this season. I'll see you in the next video. Happy gardening!